In this video, I'm about to show you 10 ice cream cone brands you should never buy because some of them are low quality, taste artificial, and honestly, not worth your money, starting with number 10. Joy Cone Company. Let's start with a name almost everyone has seen but barely questions. Joy Cone Company. On the surface, it sounds harmless. Classic branding, colorful packaging, and that nostalgic ice cream truck energy. But once you actually look closer, things get less sweet than they appear. Joy Cone is one of the largest cone manufacturers in the US, supplying supermarkets, restaurants, and even food service chains on a massive scale. And that scale matters because when you're producing millions of cones a day, the focus shifts from quality experience to maximum efficiency and shelf stability. That's where things start to change. Most Joy Cone products rely on highly processed wheat flour, refined oils, corn syrup solids, and stabilizers designed to keep cones crisp for months. Sounds normal until you realize the texture trade-off. These cones are often overly dry, brittle, and quick to crumble once exposed to moisture. Ever had a cone collapse halfway through your ice cream? That's not bad luck, that's formulation. There's also the sugar load in flavored cones like chocolate dipped or waffle variants, where syrups and added sweeteners are used to maintain taste consistency across batches. Not dangerous on its own, but definitely not the simple dessert base people imagine. And here's the real issue. Joy Cone dominates the market, meaning most store-bought cones quietly come from the same system of mass production and cost cutting. Number 9. Keebler. Now here's a brand that plays a clever game with your memory, Keebler. The moment you see that treehouse and those elves, your brain doesn't think processed dessert, it thinks childhood, fun, and ice cream nights. That's exactly the point. But if you strip away the branding, Keebler cones are really part of a large-scale commercial baking system under Kellogg's. And in that system, the priority is not artisan texture or fresh-baked quality, it's uniformity, shelf life, and mass distribution. Every cone has to survive transport, storage, and long retail cycles without breaking down or changing form. To make that happen, the ingredients are kept intentionally simple and stable. Refined wheat flour, vegetable oils, corn syrups, and emulsifiers that help maintain structure over time. Nothing unusual for packaged snacks, but the goal here is function, not flavor depth, and you can actually feel that in real use. Keebler cones often start off crisp and satisfying, but the moment ice cream sits in them for a while, they tend to lose structure faster than expected, either softening at the base or cracking under pressure. That's the trade-off of engineered consistency. Even the flavored and dipped varieties follow the same logic. Standardized sweetness, predictable crunch, and coatings designed for storage durability rather than gourmet experience. Number 8. Nabisco. Let's talk about Nabisco, a brand name most people recognize instantly but rarely question. From cones to wafers and dessert shells, it quietly powers a big chunk of the ice cream aisle. The branding feels nostalgic, almost harmless, but consumer feedback tells a slightly more complicated story. Across major retail review platforms like Walmart and Amazon listings, a recurring pattern shows up. Customers often mention breakage inside packaging, too brittle texture, and softening too quickly with ice cream. These aren't isolated complaints. They appear consistently across different product types and batches, pointing toward a structural design issue rather than random defects. On the production side, Nabisco, under Mondelez International, uses highly standardized baking systems designed for global distribution. Ingredients typically include refined wheat flour, vegetable oils, and corn syrup solids formulations optimized for shelf stability and uniform taste replication, not artisanal texture depth. Food science literature, including general findings published in the Journal of Food Engineering, shows that low-moisture baked cones with high refined starch content tend to have faster structural degradation when exposed to thermal moisture, such as melting ice cream. That aligns closely with consumer complaints about soggy bases and collapsing cones. Even industry-level packaging priorities reinforce this. Long-distance transport stability often takes precedence over fresh bite integrity. Number 7. Great value ice cream cones. You know that moment when you're standing in the freezer aisle thinking, ice cream is ice cream, right? That's exactly where great value cones quietly win your attention. They don't shout, they don't brand themselves as luxury, they just sit there being cheap and convenient. But behind that simplicity is where things get interesting. These cones are built more for cost efficiency than dessert craft. The ice cream base typically relies on recombined dairy ingredients, corn syrup solids, and vegetable fats, which help maintain texture after long freezer storage. It's designed to survive distribution systems, not necessarily to deliver premium dairy richness. According to a 2020 review in Food Research International, ultra-processed frozen desserts often use emulsifiers and stabilizers to replicate creaminess, but these additives can also change how quickly the body recognizes satiety signals. Translation? You can eat more without feeling as satisfied. Then there's the cone itself, thin, sugary, and more about crunch than flavor balance. It doesn't complement the ice cream so much as just hold it together. The result is a dessert that feels fine in the moment, but fades from memory almost immediately. So while great value cones do the job of cooling you down on a hot day, they're more about convenience than quality. It's the definition of it works, but that's about it. Number 6. Kroger ice cream cones. You don't usually question an ice cream cone. It's the kind of product that sits in your kitchen almost invisibly, something you grab without reading, without thinking. Kroger's store-brand cones are exactly that kind of item, familiar, cheap, and completely unassuming. But when you slow down and actually look at what you're eating, the simplicity starts to feel a little engineered rather than natural. At first glance, the ingredient list doesn't look alarming. Wheat flour, sugars, vegetable oils, soy lecithin, flavoring agents. Nothing screams danger, and that's what makes it interesting. Modern ultra-processed foods don't rely on obvious chemical shock anymore. They're built to look normal on paper while being industrially optimized in reality. Food research published in journals like the BMJ has repeatedly pointed out a pattern. Ultra-processed foods tend to encourage higher calorie intake and weaker satiety signals. Not because one ingredient is evil, but because the overall structure of these foods is designed for repeat consumption, crisp textures, fast melting, easy eating, and no resistance. Kroger cones are a perfect example of that system. The oils are chosen for stability, not nutrition. The structure is engineered so the cone doesn't break under heat or moisture. Even the sweetness level is calibrated to complement mass-market ice cream products rather than stand as food on its own. Number 5. Signature Select ice cream cones. Signature Select is the kind of product that slips past your attention on purpose. Nothing flashy, nothing suspicious looking, just a budget-friendly cone sitting quietly in a store-brand lineup. It feels like the most normal thing in the frozen aisle, and that's exactly why people rarely stop to think about it. But here's the reality. When you strip away the branding, you're left with a highly standardized industrial food product. The typical formula includes refined wheat flour, added sugars, vegetable oils, corn-based sweeteners, and emulsifying agents like soy lecithin. Individually, these ingredients are common, but together they represent a system built for one thing: consistency at scale. Modern food manufacturing doesn't aim for natural simplicity in products like this. It aims for control. Every cone has to taste identical, survive long storage periods, resist moisture from melting ice cream, and deliver the same crunch whether it's eaten today or 6 months later. That kind of reliability doesn't come from minimal processing, it comes from engineered formulation. This is where the concern isn't about a single ingredient being bad, but about the overall design. When food is optimized for shelf stability and mass production, texture and flavor often take priority over nutritional quality. And because products like this are so familiar, most people don't even classify them as processed. They just see them as normal groceries. Signature Select cones sit in that exact blind spot. Not alarming enough to question, not healthy enough to praise, just quietly part of a food system where convenience and cost efficiency shape almost everything we eat. Number 4. Market Pantry ice cream cones. Market Pantry is one of those store brands that feels deliberately invisible. You don't really choose it, you just end up with it because it's there, it's cheap, and it gets the job done. Their ice cream cones are a perfect example of that no-thought grocery purchase. Nothing about the packaging screams caution. and nothing about the product feels unusual at first bite. But when you break it down, you start to see the same pattern repeating again. These cones are typically made with refined wheat flour, added sugars, palm or soybean oil, corn-based sweeteners, and stabilizers like emulsifiers to keep texture consistent across mass production batches. It's not one shocking ingredient. It's the structure of the product itself. The real story here isn't what's inside in isolation. It's how tightly controlled these ingredients are in industrial baking systems. Every element has a job. The flour builds structure, the oils extend shelf stability, the sugars lock in flavor consistency, and the emulsifiers make sure nothing separates during storage or transport. The result is a cone that behaves exactly the same in every single package, regardless of where or when it was made. That consistency is impressive from a manufacturing standpoint. But it also highlights how far removed this product is from anything handmade or minimal. There's no variability, no seasonal difference, no natural irregularity, just a standardized, edible container designed to perform under any condition. Market pantry cones represent a bigger reality of modern grocery food. Products that are engineered less for individuality and more for predictability. And because they sit in the basic category, most people never question what that predictability actually costs in terms of food quality. Number 3. Food Lion ice cream cones. Food Lion cones look harmless on the surface, the kind of product most people throw into a cart without even reading the box. No branding drama, no health claims, no premium positioning. Just a basic cone meant to do the job. But here's where the interesting part begins. Products like this exist in what food researchers often call the ultra-convenience category, foods designed to minimize decision effort rather than maximize nutritional value. According to multiple dietary pattern analyses referenced by public health bodies like the CDC and NIH-backed nutrition research, the biggest concern with ultra-processed snack-style foods isn't a single ingredient, it's how they influence eating behavior. These foods are consistently linked with higher overall calorie intake and reduced satiety response, meaning people tend to eat more without realizing it. Food Lion cones fit into that pattern, not because they are toxic, but because they are engineered for consistency, affordability, and repeat purchase behavior. Ingredients like refined flour, added sugars, and stabilizing fats are standard in baked cones across the industry. The issue is how predictable and easy to overconsume these combinations become in everyday use. And that's the real angle here. Not fear, but habit formation. When a product is cheap, familiar, and effortless to consume, it stops being evaluated as a choice. It becomes automatic. Number 2. 365 by Whole Foods Market ice cream cones. At first glance, 365 by Whole Foods Market feels like the safer choice. The branding itself is doing a lot of work. Clean design, the Whole Foods name in the background, and that subtle psychological message that you're buying something more conscious than a regular store brand. Many people don't even question it. If it's from Whole Foods, it must be better, right? But this is where perception and reality start to separate. The 365 ice cream cones still sit in the same ultra-processed category as most mainstream grocery cones. The formulation typically includes refined wheat flour, added sugars, vegetable oils, and emulsifiers, standard components used across large-scale baked cone production. Nothing unusual, nothing rare, but also nothing truly premium in a nutritional sense either. What makes this interesting is not the ingredients, it's the positioning. A 2019 analysis of private label health halo products published in the Appetite Journal found that consumers consistently overestimate the nutritional quality of products associated with premium grocery brands. In simple terms, branding alone can create a healthier than it is illusion, even when the formulation is nearly identical to cheaper alternatives. 365 cones sit exactly inside that illusion gap. They are marketed under a trusted retail ecosystem, which reduces consumer skepticism. That trust becomes part of the product value itself, even when the actual composition remains fairly standard for mass-produced cones. So the issue here isn't that 365 cones are uniquely harmful. It's more subtle than that. It's about how branding can quietly override ingredient scrutiny. And once that happens, consumers stop comparing products based on what they are and start comparing them based on who sells them. Number 1, Hy-Vee ice cream cones. Hy-Vee cones sit in that interesting space where nothing about them feels suspicious at first glance. They're not flashy, not heavily advertised, and not positioned as a health product. They're just there, clean packaging, budget-friendly pricing, and the kind of item you grab when you're already in the aisle and just want to finish the shopping list. But the real story isn't in the marketing. It's in how products like this are built to blend into default eating. Hy-Vee store brand cones follow the standard mass bakery formulation: refined wheat flour, added sugars, vegetable oils, and stabilizers used across large-scale production systems. These components are not unusual in the ice cream cone category. In fact, they're industry standard, but that's exactly the point. The goal is uniformity, not individuality. What makes this more interesting is how these standard products normalize ultra-processed eating patterns. According to large-scale dietary data summarized by the U.S. National Institutes of Health and Related Nutrition Research, the concern with ultra-processed foods isn't isolated ingredients, it's how they replace whole food preparation habits over time. The more frequently these convenient items are used, the more they become the baseline instead of an occasional choice. Hy-Vee cones don't stand out because they don't need to. They exist inside the acceptable default category, the food you don't think twice about because it feels too simple to question. And that's exactly how modern grocery systems keep certain products consistently in rotation. Not because they're the best option, but because they're easy enough to never challenge. But don't worry, it's not all bad. There are 5 ice cream cone brands that are actually delicious, creamy, and worth every bite, starting with number 5. Let's Do Organic Ice Cream Cones. Let's Do Organic takes the top spot because it represents the closest thing to a clean label direction in a category that is usually dominated by cost-focused formulation. Unlike most standard cones that rely on conventional refined ingredients, this brand positions itself around organic sourcing and simpler ingredient transparency. The key difference here is not just what's included, but what's intentionally avoided. Organic certification standards regulated under USDA guidelines restrict the use of many synthetic additives, artificial preservatives, and certain processing aids that are commonly found in mainstream baked cones. That alone changes the product philosophy from industrial optimization to ingredient restraint. From a real-world eating experience, this creates a noticeable shift in perception. The cone doesn't try to feel overly engineered or artificially enhanced. Instead, it leans toward a more natural baked texture and a lighter sweetness profile, which allows the ice cream itself to remain the main focus. It's also important to understand the broader consumer trend behind products like this. Over the past decade, organic packaged foods have grown significantly due to increasing awareness around ingredient sourcing and label reading behavior. This brand exists directly in that space where consumers actively choose transparency over pure convenience. So in comparison to heavily processed or overly standardized cones, Let's Do Organic stands out not because it is perfect, but because it aligns more closely with minimal processing principles and cleaner ingredient expectations. Number 4. Gold Medal Products Ice Cream Cones. Gold Medal Products cones are different from regular grocery store cones because they are built mainly for food service businesses, not everyday home shoppers. That alone changes the entire purpose of the product. These cones are designed for performance in high-volume environments like concession stands and commercial dessert setups. The focus is not on branding or premium experience, but on consistency, durability, and speed of service. Every cone has to hold up under fast handling, bulk storage, and constant demand. The ingredients are still standard for baked cones: refined flour, sugars, and vegetable-based fats, but the emphasis is on structural stability rather than flavor innovation. The cone is engineered to stay crisp, resist moisture, and maintain uniform shape across large batches. What makes this a better option in comparison is the transparency of intent. Gold Medal Products doesn't try to position itself as healthy or artisanal. It is openly a functional, commercial-grade product. Number 3. The Connery Ice Cream Cones. The Connery cones feel different the moment you look at them, not because of hype, but because of restraint. In a category where many products try to over-explain themselves through branding or premium claims, this one stays unusually straightforward. What stands out here is the ingredient philosophy. Instead of layering multiple functional additives to engineer texture and shelf life, the conery keeps the formulation closer to what you'd expect from a simple baked cone base: flour, sweeteners, and basic baking components without unnecessary complexity. From a consumer experience point of view, this matters because it affects how the cone actually feels when eaten. It doesn't try to dominate the ice cream or outcompete it in flavor. It plays a supporting role, which is exactly what a cone is supposed to do, but many products forget this balance. Nutrition-wise, there's no illusion being created here either. It's not marketed as a health food, and it doesn't rely on better-for-you positioning tricks. That honesty is what makes it stand out in a crowded category where perception often matters more than reality. Number 2. Wafer King ice cream cones. Wafer King cones sit in that interesting, almost premium, but not really, space where branding does a lot of the talking. The name itself sets an expectation of something light, crisp, and elevated. But when you look past the name, what matters most is how closely it stays aligned with a very simple product identity. Unlike heavily marketed cones that try to feel indulgent or artificially rich, Wafer King leans into a more minimal biscuit-style wafer structure. The ingredient base is still typical for baked cones: flour, sweetening agents, and plant-based fats, but the experience is less about engineered heaviness and more about light crunch and neutrality in flavor. What makes this relevant in a better choices list is balance. The cone doesn't try to overpower the ice cream or turn itself into a dessert on its own. It stays in the background, which is exactly its functional role. In many lower quality cones, the problem isn't just ingredients. It's over-formulation that makes the cone compete with the filling instead of supporting it. Wafer King avoids that overreach. It doesn't present itself as health food, and it doesn't rely on heavy clean label storytelling either. It simply exists as a straightforward wafer cone with predictable texture and taste. Number 1. Sugar Cone Express. Sugar Cone Express earns a spot on the better list not because it tries to look premium, but because it stays extremely close to what an ice cream cone is supposed to be in the first place: a simple, sweet, structural base for ice cream, not a product competing for attention. What separates it from lower-tier cones is how straightforward the formulation feels. It typically sticks to the basics of cone production: flour, sugar, and standard baking components that give structure and sweetness without overcomplicating the recipe. There's no attempt to turn it into a heavily engineered dessert component. From a real eating experience perspective, this matters more than people realize. When cones are overprocessed or overly flavored, they start to interfere with the ice cream itself, either by being too sweet, too dense, or too artificial in texture. Sugar Cone Express avoids that problem by staying light and predictable. It doesn't rely on health claims or clean label marketing either. Instead, its strength is consistency and simplicity. That means what you expect is what you get: a cone that holds ice cream properly, tastes neutral sweet, and doesn't distract from the dessert.